Hey, welcome back to Math in Minutes. This is a review video on previously learned concepts. This one we are discussing equivalent decimals. So we are learning how to take our tenths and hundredths and make them equivalent so we can move into eventually adding and subtracting of fractions or decimals with different denominators. So we have to talk about how to change a tenths fraction or a hundredths fraction to make them equivalent, and then we'll move into the decimals. So how that starts is if I have 6 tenths and I need to make that into a hundredths. Basically what we're doing is, how do I make a 10 into 100? Well, I multiply that times 10, because 10 times 10 is 100. And whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do the top. So I'm multiplying the top by 10 as well. 6 times 10 is 60. Now the students did learn this. Basically what I told them though is you're adding a 0 to the top and the bottom. As you can see, the only thing I changed from here is I added a 0 to the top and the bottom. So if I have 6 tenths and I want to make it hundredths, I would add a 0 to the top, 0 to the bottom, I get 61 hundredths. This is the short form of the mathematical way to do it, multiplying by 10 over 10 to create those equivalent fractions. Now, we might have to go from a hundredths to a tenths. Now, in 4th grade, we would only have to do that if the numerator and the denominator both had a 0. For example, if I had 51 hundredths and I needed to change that into a tenths, I would divide, this is the mathematical way, divide both the top and bottom by 10 over 10, which gives me 5 tenths, or the real quick, simple, easy way to do it, 51 hundredths, take away a 0 from the top and the bottom. Whatever I do the top, I have to do the bottom, equals 5 tenths. So the children were definitely taught this. Now we have to look at this in terms of equivalent decimals. So if I have 5 tenths, and I need to change this into a decimal, remember, it's a fraction, so that represents a decimal point. 1 0, so that's one place value. Numerator in that one place value, that's 0.5. 0.5 is equivalent if I had 51 hundredths. And this is just an understanding of how it looks, because then we're going to get into money. Fraction, so that's a decimal point. 2 zeros, 2 place values. Write my numerator is 0.50. 0.5 is equal to 0.50. They look different, but they have the exact same value. Basically, it's saying 5 tenths, 5 tenths. There's 0 100ths, so 0 100ths doesn't have a value. So these are equivalent, and they needed this portion of it in order to be able to get to this portion of it. We will be working on this when we get into money. It is, like I said, a building block for the next step. So So our essential question, forgot to do that. Our essential question is, how are tenths relatable to hundredths? All right, we already know tenths, we already know hundreds. Relatable is that relationship, so we would have talked about that. Relationship between the two. And basically what we're saying is that tenths always comes before hundreds, so that's their relationship. Basically, you require tenths before you can have 100, and it's needed. So if I have a hundredths number, for example, if I have a 4 here, I have to have a tenths. The relationship is they're a bond. They have to be together. The tenths doesn't need a hundredths, but a hundredths always needs a tenths. Hundredths always needs a tenths. So it's that bond. They have to be together. And this will help us when we get to money, which I believe is the next unit. So let's do a couple of these. We want to change. So we're going to talk about this conversion process here and then turn it into here. I think I'm going to use this side. I know it's a little see-through, but I don't want to waste paper. I want to save as much paper as I can. So I have 7 tenths, and I need to change this 7 tenths into hundredths. I multiply the top and the bottom by 10, which equals 70 tenths, or 70 hundredths. 7 times 10 equals this. 10 times 10 equals this. Same process is 7 over 10, add a 0 to the top, 0 to the bottom. 70 100ths. So this is what we're doing here for conversions. So here are a couple practice. And the numbers could be bigger, so let's see. 21 tenths, 4 tenths, 18 tenths. So here's the process. Here's the fraction. Multiply it by 10 over 10. All of these by 10 over 10. And the kids do not have to write this out. You don't have to write this out. If you don't need this step, if you can just add the 2 zeros, you're good as gold, and that's all you got to do. I'm just showing you the mathematical way to do this. 21 times 10 is 210. 10 times 10 is 100. Same thing as saying 21 tenths and adding a 0 to the top, 0 to the bottom. Same difference. That's all we're doing here. 40 100ths, 4 tenths, 0 to the top, 0 to the bottom. Whatever you do the top, you do the bottom, you're golden. 180 100ths, 18 tenths, 0 to the top, 0 to the bottom. So we're working on that. Now let's represent each one of these in decimal form to work on that relationship. So I have 7 tenths is 0.1 place value 7. If I were to have it in hundredths, it would be 0.70. If it's hundredths, I have to have 2 place values. And this is tenths. Hundredths, I have 2 place values. If I have to have 2 place values, I just add a 0 in those place value, like a holder spot. All right. So that's all we had for our conversion lesson. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope this helps.